Kayleigh McEnany, she's the White House press secretary. Good morning, Kayleigh.
Good morning, Ainsley.
First of all, let me ask you about your health before we talk about the hurricane. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. No symptoms. The hardest part is being isolated from my little 10-month-old, but I'm feeling great, and I'm one of the blessed ones in this country to have an asymptomatic case of this.
Oh yeah, well, we're glad to hear that. All right, what's the president's message for the folks in Louisiana and Mississippi and Texas that are about to get hit with another storm?
Yeah, that his heart is with them to stay calm. Your federal government is on your side. He has been actively engaged on the phone with governors. We've made sure that FEMA has assets deployed on the ground. So stay calm, listen to your governors and the local instructions of your leaders there, but the federal government is ready to assist.
All right, let's move on and talk about the president last night. Was on with Sean Hannity and mentioned he did cough a couple of times, said, listen, I might even be doing an event maybe in Florida, and then we'll go to Pennsylvania after. What have you heard about that? What are the possibilities? And being that you're in separate locations, what could you tell us that you've noticed about the president's condition?
Yeah, the president, I was on the phone with him 3 or 4 times yesterday. He is hard at work. He is ready to go. He wants to talk to the American people, and he wants to be out there. Logistically, whether tomorrow's possible, it would be tough. It would be a decision for the campaign. But logistically, we're just trying to keep up with the president, who's ready to go and ready to be out there as soon as he gets the okay from his doctor.
Absolutely. And his doctor did put out a statement yesterday that said he would be cleared for takeoff, essentially, and, resume public activities as early as tomorrow. But what is the bar? Does the president have to pass a COVID test with a negative result? One of them, 2 of them? What happens next?
Yeah, so I spoke to Dr. Connolly yesterday, and he reiterated that to me, that he believes that today, or rather Saturday, he will be clear to go. I'll leave that to him as to how that works medically, but he assured me that there are medical tests underway that will ensure that when the president's back out there, he will not be able to transmit the virus. So Dr. Connolly will lay out exactly how that looks medically speaking, but rest assured, we will make sure that he's in a good spot before he's out there.
Okay, so if the president takes this COVID test and it comes back positive, he can't go out yet, right?
Yeah, again, I'll leave it to Dr. Connolly because he has all the granular details of the testing and as to what medical bar needs to be met to show that you're not transmissible. But yes, there will be a test in place, and rest assured that test will show that it's not transmissible. He won't be out there if he could transmit the virus.
Okay, so Nancy Pelosi doesn't think he's doing well, thinks the medicine's making him a little crazy. So she's creating this commission to evaluate the president's mental and physical fitness using the 25th Amendment. This is what she said.
I think that the public needs to know the health condition of the president. There's one question that they refuse to answer. Before he got the virus and admitted to it, when was his last negative test? When was his last negative test? To make a judgment about the actions that were taken after that. Tomorrow, by the way, come here tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the 25th Amendment, but not to take attention away from the subject we have now.
The 25th Amendment says if the president can't do his job, then the vice president would resume the powers. What do you say about that?
Yeah, that's an absurd proposition from Nancy Pelosi. The only one who needs to be looking at the 25th Amendment is Nancy Pelosi herself. She had that bizarre interview on ABC a few weeks ago where in the middle of it, after she suggested using impeachment to make sure that Amy Coney Barrett doesn't get on the court, impeachment of the president of the United States for carrying out his constitutional duty. In the middle of the interview, she blurts out, "Good morning, good Sunday morning." So maybe she's projecting here because the 25th Amendment, no reason for it to be considered with regard to the president of the United States, but maybe for Nancy Pelosi herself.
Any chance of getting that debate on track or the president accepting a virtual debate with cameras and monitors in each camp from the other camp?
Yeah, Brian, the president has no interest in a virtual debate. I mean, we've seen Joe Biden, he could barely keep up on the debate stage last time, and now putting him in a forum where he'd have access to maybe teleprompters. Who knows? The president certainly wouldn't be there to hold him accountable. It's not a fair format. And for the Commission on Presidential Debates, which is more like a commission to re-elect Joe Biden, to announce this at 7:30 yesterday morning with no input from the campaigns, it just shows that they're doing the bidding work of the Democrat Party.
Kayleigh, glad to see you're asymptomatic. Thanks so much.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, guys.